Carl, thanks so much for being on the show today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself, Bob?
Very good. I'm doing very good. I'm so glad to have you on the show. For people that are watching or listening who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, can you kind of share with everyone your name and what you're doing with CertainPath these days?
All right. Name's Carl DiBene. I have been brought on at CertainPath as a strategic business advisor. Been back now for about 90 days, 60 days, I guess 60 days, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Time's flying fast, but I'm having a great time.
That's right. But it's not your foray into contracting. You've been doing this for a little bit, right? Share with everyone how long you've been in it.
Yeah. I've been doing it. I think I got into the contracting business in 97, I want to say.
Right.
As an accountant, believe it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
You got a great story, and we'll get into your story in a quick second. But this big initiative that you're spearheading, it's called the SOAR Program. Kind of share with everyone real quickly what the overview of that is.
All right. So the SOAR Program is something, as Rebecca and Abigail and I were sitting down, like, hey, what can you do for us, Carl? What can you bring to the table?
Right.
And something that I've been doing for a lot of years is visiting businesses and kind of taking a look at their operations.
Yeah.
And try to pinpoint some areas of opportunity that could help the businesses grow, flourish, and become a program. And Rebecca and Abigail were real excited about it. We rolled it out, as you know, Bob. You helped me with it.
Yeah.
And man, we sold a bunch of spots really quick, and I've been on the road for about 8 weeks straight now.
Is that right?
Businesses. Yeah.
How many visits have you done thus far?
I've done 8. There's only 2 spots left.
Yeah.
I can only handle, after we kind of looked at the calendar and the rotation, I could only handle 10 businesses at a time.
Right.
And I haven't even really, if this makes sense, tried to sell it. I mean, people are calling, I talked to them on the phone, and boom, we got it scheduled.
Yeah.
So I got 2 spots left. There's been plenty of inquiries, so I probably should call a couple of folks, but
but it's good. You're getting to help people, and it's good for the members. It's good for us. It's a win-win all the way around.
Oh yeah.
So what is this? So just so people understand, so you go in and what's it, 2 days, or is it a day and a half?
Yeah.
How long is it exactly?
It's 2 days, 2 full days. So what I'll do is I'll fly in. Yeah, I'll fly in on Monday afternoon. And then I'll be at the business first thing in the morning on Tuesday. Usually about 8:30 in the morning. When I say first thing, I let them get the technicians cleared out and everything, and I'll be there all day Tuesday as long as it takes. And then be all day Wednesday, and I usually don't fly out to Thursday, so I don't have to cut out early to catch a flight.
That's great.
It's 2 solid days that I'm going to spend with the owners and the managers of a business to really get under the hood and see what's really going on in the business.
Right. And then who all do you talk to in addition to the owner? Is it primarily owner and middle managers, or who do you typically chat with?
So typically when I'm there, it'll be the owners. Mm-hmm. It'll be the service line managers. If you have a plumbing, HVAC, whatever, service managers. I'll spend time with them. Sales managers. I like to, if I can, on Wednesday morning, sit in on a tech meeting and a sales meeting, and I like to talk to the technicians if I can. Just get a feel for the techs and where they're at. You learn a lot by sitting in a tech meeting and actually chatting with techs.
Sure.
We'll meet with the accountants. We'll meet with the marketing manager if they have one, if it's not the owner. So I'm going to meet with every position.
Right.
To get a feel for their team, what they're doing, and just try to get an understanding of, their philosophy of the business. Make sure everybody's on the same page.
Right. And then you compile a bunch of notes, basically what your findings are, and then you give a plan of action, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Very cool. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, we'll dive into it. For example, in the service department, we'll dive in. We'll start looking at tickets. We'll start looking at, what's happening with the service calls, what kind of revenues being generated, what kind of opportunities we're capitalizing or we're leaving behind. And we'll go through the whole thing. I'll write a report at the end, but we're going to train while I'm there.
Right.
We're going to work. Yeah, we're going to work with the service manager and the owner and talk about where these opportunities lie and how to manage it.
Right.
What reports to start looking at or creating so that you can better manage it. because a lot of times they're not aware of some different ways to look at this.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I'm a simple man. I mean, things have to be easy for me. I mean, you can overcomplicate anything. But at the end of the day,
the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a service business. You're going in and out of people's homes. You're helping them.
Yeah.
But it's a business, so you have to make sure you're helping yourself as well.
Absolutely.
So it's got to be a win-win when you're visiting homes.
Yeah.
And that's what we're making sure to do.
Absolutely. I love it. And we're going to dig in to specifically kind of department by department. What are some things you're looking for, problems you see? But I do want to share your story a little bit because you've got a great story, unique background. So let's dig in a little bit. Before you got in the trades, you were an Army Ranger, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So talk about that experience. What was that? How long did you serve? What was that experience like?
It was a phenomenal experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I mean, I'll always say, I don't think I'd be where I am today had I not done that.
Right.
A lot of kids get out of high school and they're running off to college and all these other things. And I could have done the same thing, but I knew I wasn't ready for that. And I kind of like adventure a little bit.
Sure. That's a hell of an adventure.
Yeah. So I actually signed up and joined the Rangers after my junior year in high school. So I did back then delayed entry. So I just delayed entry. So I sat for a whole year knowing I was going to the Army. Everybody else was taking off. So 3 days out of high school, I was on a bus going to Miami to do some processing, and then they bussed us up to Fort Benning, Georgia, and my life began.
Wow. How many years again did you serve? I forget.
8.5 years.
8.5 years. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And then you get out of the military and you go, I'm going to go back to school, right?
That is correct.
And then accounting, you with this big personality, and you're going to go, I'm going to be a numbers nerd. I say that kidding. My dad was an accountant, but So why the decision to get into accounting?
Well, so the funny thing is, I wanted to join the FBI.
Oh, this makes sense now.
Yeah. So when I got out of the Army, I want to join the FBI. Well, the FBI, they only took 3 things. You had to be an accountant, a lawyer, or a pilot.
Okay.
So being a pilot was out, being a lawyer was out. So accounting was where it's at. So that was the path.
Yeah, that makes sense now. All right.
Yeah.
But obviously that didn't come to fruition. So
you know what? Back in the when I graduated, because obviously I went to college. Started college was like, I don't know, it was like 26, something like that, 25, 26. And in the mid 90s, they had a moratorium on federal government hiring.
Oh, okay.
So right when I finished college, no, the federal government wasn't hiring. So,
oh my God. So you go, I gotta figure something out fast.
Exactly.
And you just answered a job ad. That's how I got stuck with this.
It was in a newspaper. It was a newspaper John Young ad.
Oh, is that right? Oh my God.
Some folks that are listening that remember John Young, he wrote an ad that Dave Goodenough ran in the local newspaper, and it said, "Small growing service company seeks accountant with opportunity to be CFO."
Oh, okay.
I was like, huh.
Yeah.
That totally coincided with my favorite accounting professor who said, if you want to move up the ladder fast, find a small company that's growing.
Yeah.
Because if you join any of the big firms or anything like that, they're already capped out. You have to wait for somebody to retire or something before there's a spot.
Yeah.
So it kind of fit right in. I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so you guys you joined it was a plumbing company, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
It was a plumbing only company, yes.
Yeah, and then you guys were you the first round of members with what was then Plumbers Success International in 1998?
Yeah, so the guy who owned the plumbing company, him and his wife actually partnered with an old CSG Service Experts guy.
Oh, okay.
Lou Selman was his name.
Oh,
and so
I remember that name.
Yeah, Lou partnered with Dave and Barb, and they started air conditioning, and they were members of that CSG Contractor Success Group.
Yeah.
And the first CSG meeting I went to was the meeting that Jim Abrams was resigning from.
Oh boy.
CSG Service Experts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they probably took about a year and a half off before they started PSI.
Yeah.
in 1999, I believe.
Yeah, holy cow.
We were original members. We went to the very first, recruiting meeting because they won't let you sign up over the phone. You have to show up.
Right.
So we showed up and we were some of the first members to join the original posse.
Yeah. And for those watching and listening that are not members, PSI or Plumber Success International, that's what CertainPath is today, 25 years later. So ground floor, and then you came to work for us not long after, and actually built out all our training. So kind of share with everyone what you did with us in those early days.
Yeah. So I don't know, after about a year or so, PSI, I guess it was 2 years, I got asked to start doing some of the training. And then I think 6 months after that, they asked me to take over the training department.
Yeah.
So I happily, that was awesome for me. It was like almost a dream come true.
Right.
So back then it was New Millennium Academy, and I was running the New Millennium Academy. Had a few training courses already in place, so we added to that. So most of the courses you see today are a byproduct of what we started way back when it was NMA, New Millennium Academy.
They absolutely are. Yeah, we've changed as things change, but the course foundation of delivering exceptional services. I can't tell you how many people have asked me over the last 20 years about that binder with the CDs. What was it? The Plumber's Playbook. They're like, we still watch them, even though they're grainy now because they're from VHS converted to DVD. But your stuff works, which is fun. The accountant turned sales trainer. You've got it all covered. You got it all covered. Yeah. So eventually you leave and you go to ARS in 2009 in a senior management position, and you kind of really at your time there. And it was how many years there? You were there a long time.
I was there 14 years.
14 years. You kind of were known as the turnaround artist, right? So basically what you're doing with us, you did for them. Kind of share your experience.
Yeah. All the experience I got from working with the contractors at SGI at the time, now CertainPath, really translated because you know this. You work with so many different contractors, so many different challenges they have.
Yeah.
Now I'm in a business that has, when I got there, ARS was, I think they were doing a little under $400 million.
Yeah.
And during that 14-year period, we grew to $1.2 billion.
Yeah.
So through acquisitions, through internal growth, managed and worked with a lot of different businesses, in our Central and West and our Florida, divisions. And every business is a little different.
Sure.
And every business has to be managed a little different.
Right.
And so, going through that growth spurt with the team at ARS was really, it was enlightening. It was fun.
Right.
I really enjoyed it for a lot of years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Their first, there's, I know people in the industry that wanted to grow to $1 billion and it never happened.
Right.
They stall at around, $350 million, and they all seem to stall 350, 400 million. The guys at ARS, I don't know if people know the history of it, but Dave Slott and Don Carnes, these guys are the ones that built True Green into over $1 billion.
Right.
On $139 transactions.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So
everyone knows True Green. Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. And they were running, I think, 250, 300 branches around the country.
Right.
That's a lot of businesses to manage at $139 transactions. Yeah. So these guys really understood how to manage multiple locations around the country and get the results they were looking for.
Yeah. And let's see, if I'm not mistaken, you were managing before you left, 31 locations and almost $500 million in sales?
Yeah. I was the West Zone sales manager.
Yeah.
So I handle sales and marketing, around our whole West Zone. And typically, if I'm working in the West, if there was a problem with a business in the Central or whatever, whether it was, sewer sales or if it was HVAC sales, whatever, the guy I reported to, Chris Evans, a great guy. He'd call me on the phone and say, hey, I need you, in Kansas City this week. I need you to spend time with whoever, and let's get this thing turned around. Right.
So basically what you're doing with us now is what you've been doing for a long time. So you've got the proven track record for sure.
Yep. Doing it since 97.
Well, we're glad to have you back for sure. And excited what you're doing with the program, because I know there's a lot of people that could use your guidance, even good companies.
Support for this podcast comes from Yellowstone Local. Are you a home service company struggling to find experienced employees to hire? Then you need to schedule a meeting with Yellowstone Local, the undisputed leader in helping home service companies build high-performing teams. Yellowstone Local doesn't just fill open positions, they shift your entire recruiting paradigm, changing your brand into a magnet for amazing people and helping you hire people that embody your vision, your drive, and your commitment to excellence. With an intentionally extensive approach, you'll have a partner that builds and executes the entire process for you, saving you time and money while getting the best results. So, in an industry where your product is your people, don't settle for less where it matters most. Visit YellowstoneLocal.com today and experience a different way to hire. For more information, contact Warren Lentz at 512-962-2638 or email warren@YellowstoneLocal.com.
You promoted the program, you had like a checklist of things, generally what you're looking at. And I kind of want to speak to each one of those a little bit. So number one, you had P&L review, a 7-year trend review. When you sit down with companies' P&Ls, what are some of the common problems or red flags you're typically searching for?
When I look at the 7-year trend, what I do is we do every single month for the last 7 years, and it'll be revenue, profit, and profit percentage. For every single month. And I'm looking for, where the growth is happening. Number one. Number two, I'm looking for consistency. And that's a big challenge I've been seeing in my travels here reviewing P&Ls. If I do $800,000 in a month, I should know I'm going to make X dollars of profit. Let's just pretend it's $100,000.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll see a business do 800,000, make 120. The next month they'll do 800,000 and lose 14. The next month they'll do 850,000 and make 65. So there's no correlation. And then when you talk to them, they'll say that they're doing the accounting right and they're using the accrual system, but then when you start looking how it's happening, it's partial accrual, not so much. So we're not matching revenue and profit. Businesses don't know their break even. Right. So just some of these things start to come out when you're looking at the trend. And then, at the end, when you look at the year in totality, it's like, okay, if you did $1 million more year to year.
Yeah.
Right. So in 21 to 22, you did $1 million extra dollars. What percentage of that additional revenue should convert to profit?
Right.
Right. So I always like to look at what their conversions are. And if their conversions aren't, in the upper 30s, what's going on? What's eating that additional revenue?
Okay.
Right.
So all of a sudden you have a list of questions. You look through that stuff, you start red flagging it, writing it down, and then who do you sit down with, the owner or, I don't know, smaller companies don't have CFOs, but maybe they have some admin manager that's managing the books, and you just kind of dig in, right? Let's see how your accounting practice is, if it's just an accounting issue or if there's an actual operational issue. That's the first step.
Yep, that's it. You will get, so if it's, let's just say it's last year, July and August, something weird happened. And sometimes there's, you bought something, you sold something, there was a big, inventory hit or something. But if there's nothing, let's see it. And then so I'll have them print out the detailed P&L. Right. And then we'll look at a 3-month period at what labor's doing, what material's doing. And that's where you'll see the big variations. Right. One month labor's, 23%, and the next month labor's 8.5%. We didn't accrue right here.
Right. And this is so important for people that are watching or listening. If you really want to sell your business, now I know money's getting a little tighter these days, so I don't know if acquisitions are quite like they were the last couple of years, but you got to have this stuff buttoned up because that's what someone's going to come in and look at, right? So it's better to triage it now versus when you start having conversations with someone and you actually want to create an exit plan and all of a sudden you go, oh my God, and it becomes a big headache. So it's a huge service to figure this out early on. So that's good stuff. You also look at org charts, which I know Back in the day, everyone go, oh, an org chart, what the hell? It's just boxes and lines, and no one needs that, right? No, but it is so important. So when you kind of look at org charts, so there's certain common problems or things you're looking for, just too many people reporting maybe to one person, or what are some things you're always looking for?
One of the things I always look for, and people don't see it on org charts very much, but first I want to see is how long people have been working there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I want to know, if we have a turnover problem or people,
you know
what I'm saying? That tells you a lot about a business.
Right.
When I sit down and we look at the org chart, that's the first thing we do. We'll sit down and we'll look at the org chart, and we can spend 2.5, 3 hours just on the org chart, because it takes us to a lot of different places. And to your point, Bob, we want to see what the span of control is, right? I mean, how many people are being managed by a manager? And sometimes you find positions like, what's that position?
Exactly. Right.
Are you really big enough revenue wise to justify that position?
Sure.
Right. So those are some of the things you look at. Then when you get to the P&L, and now you start seeing some of the labor, it makes sense where some of that overhead costs and things like that are coming from.
Yeah.
Right?
Is that the biggest problem you still seeing come? I mean, I feel like this has been going on forever. They're just too office heavy. Is that still the case?
It still is. Sometimes owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're seeing, they got their BHAGs, and they got these, great goals of where they want to be, and they start building the overhead before they're building the revenue.
Right.
So they got this solid foundation, right?
Sure.
For when they are $20 million, but they're only 10. Right. So let's have the overhead for 9 million and do 10 million and make a lot of money.
Right.
Instead of having the overhead for 20 million and make a little bit of money.
Right. And actually, that leads to my next kind of line of questioning, because this is a big thing that's coming up, especially in our industry. Things have been good and people are growing fast. And there's always that question of when's the right time to add a second service manager or a sales manager, right? When is it time that I can justify that cost because it's going to realize X amount more in sales? How do you coach people through that? What are some things they should think about?
So it always comes down to what your return on investment is going to be, right? If I add this additional body, whether it's a sales manager or if I'm going to go and add a service manager, and me as the GM, I'm no longer a service manager. Now I'm adding that spot.
Right.
What additional revenue are we going to generate by doing that? Because if we're not going to generate any additional revenue, only a little bit of additional revenue,
right? Why
do it? All you're doing is add an expense. Now, if by adding this person, we can now add 3 more technicians because we have the call volume to substantiate it. We could add 3, 4 more technicians. Now, now that'll be able to be managed, and me as the owner, now I can start focusing on growing the business instead of being the service manager, the sales manager, and the install manager. Right. So it always comes down to being honest with yourself about how much more additional revenue I could expect. Obviously, if I hire them tomorrow, I'm not going to get that revenue tomorrow, but over the runway of maybe 3 to 6 to 9 months, have it laid out. Here's the expectation by bringing on this additional person, or promoting this person, right? Because as soon as you do it, if you're promoting somebody and say, hey, I need you to be my field supervisor and start managing the techs. Well, that means they're going to be sitting in the office for 3/4 of the day. You just lost that revenue.
Exactly.
Right? You probably didn't replace that technician, and now he becomes a cost to the business, not an investment. And you want to make that person an investment where we're adding and not staying the same or going backwards because we took that revenue out of the field.
It's probably best, and you tell me from to backfill that position before you ever elevate that position, right? You want to hire. I always feel like in talking to people, and obviously I'm not the expert, but I've talked to enough guys, right? But it's better to have, where you have too many plumbers reporting to you, and then you're stressed out, but then you can elevate one of those plumbers into a service manager, and then he takes everybody up, and then you're allowed to focus more on marketing or whatever, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Is there a sweet spot, like in your experience? We've always said maybe 8 to 10, technicians to a manager. Is that what you've been found to be the case in your travels?
That's about right. I mean, you start getting over 10, and now the accountability starts to suffer a little bit.
Right. So that's a good nugget right there. Yeah. Because you can't keep an eye on everything. Right.
But then you go to some business where you see one guy can comfortably manage 12 or 15.
Yeah.
Because he's got some senior techs that are disciplined in the field, so he doesn't have to babysit.
Right.
So situation dictates,
Right.
whether it's 8 to 10, and then how experienced are the folks in the field?
Yeah.
Right. Because if they're not real experienced, that service manager is getting bombarded with calls telling them how to fix things in the field because they're not that experienced. So
Sure.
now you're not going to be able to handle 10 to 12. You're going to be, 6 to 7.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of things. Situation always dictates.
Absolutely. How about on the HVAC side, especially like install teams? What's a comfortable number an install manager can really run before he's just like, or she is like, okay, I just have no idea what's going on.
Again,
This varies.
Yeah, the quality of the lead installers, are they capable of handling it with minimum babysitting or oversight? Right, but an install manager should be able to handle a team of 10 install squads
teams. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They should be able to handle it. As long as they got an install coordinator that's handling the paperwork and the permits and all that stuff's happening and warranties and all that. Sometimes if you only got 3 install crews, you don't have that install coordinator because now that install manager has to handle all that stuff too.
Exactly.
Right? So,
sure. I bring these up for a reason because we were talking about that overhead on that org chart. I want people to hear this is kind of what, you don't necessarily need all those managers just yet if you don't have those kind of numbers.
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
Right. So I'm intrigued to get your background, your insight on this. Recruiting is obviously the biggest issue in our industry. We've talked about it for 20 years. It's got to be something you do all the time, but now it's even worse. So in your experience, who really should handle the recruiting function in a business? Is it have you seen people, because we started promoting HighRecruiters. Is that what ARS was doing, or what's your background, or what's your thoughts on that?
I'm all for having a recruiter full time if the recruiter is recruiting full time and not just sitting there mining the different databases and forwarding resumes onto a service manager, sales manager, or general manager.
Exactly.
I could hire somebody for minimum wage to do that.
Yeah.
To me, a recruiter is proactive.
Yes.
So not only are they doing those things we just talked about, because you will find some nuggets in there, but this person, if you think about the recruiters on LinkedIn and stuff, they're proactively searching out talent that already has jobs, and they're trying to bring you in and get you interviews with some of their clients.
Yep.
To me, that's how a recruiter needs to act. And they didn't act like this in ARS either, and it just used to frustrate the heck out of me.
Yeah.
You're being paid as a recruiter. Find out who the best technicians are in the market, who the best salespeople are in the market, because they all have jobs. People are looking,
and they're not looking.
We've always said,
no.
And you talk to somebody that you're interviewing them, like, well, why'd you leave your last job? Well, it's always because they were messed up, not because you were you know what I'm saying?
Sure. Sure.
It wasn't that you got caught, driving the vehicle with beer in it. They're never going to tell you that part of the story.
Right.
They're going to say, oh, they were messing with my pay, or So you got to identify some of the top people in your market, and to me, that's the job of the recruiter. Now, how does a recruiter do that? Talking to the technicians, going to supply houses and talking to the supply house people. They got to proactively seek out the best talent and try to bring them in for interviews, at least stay in contact with them, so that when that person really does get fed up with where they're at, you're top of mind.
Yeah.
Because being a good recruiter is being a good marketer.
Yep.
Right?
It's a sales position.
Yes, and you have to make sure that you're on top of mind as soon as somebody decides, you know what, I have had it here. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up because I feel like a lot of people, I'm a HighRecruiter, and all they are is a inbound resumes and taking response. And then all of a sudden, then the service managers and install managers and salesmen, they're still doing the same thing. They're doing the interviews and they're getting their eyes off what they should be doing and handling their team. So I love that you brought that up. I think you were going to say something else. I cut you off. I got excited. Sorry, Carl.
Yeah, no, I forget what I was going to say. An example is a guy in our Boston market. I knew of him from working at SGI.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and it'd been, I don't know, 3 years since I worked there, 4 years since I worked there, but I'm like, we could use this guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, make some initial phone calls, and it took, I don't know, 9-10 months before
Right.
he finally made the switch. I mean, recruiting it takes time.
Yes.
And you got to develop a relationship. Somebody's at a good business, for them to leave and come to your business, they have to feel comfortable. There has to be a relationship. They're not going to
100%.
risk everything that, you know, guys selling $4 million,
Right.
you know, making 9-10% on that. Now I'm going to shift over to you. I'm risking 400 grand a year earning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we talk so long about and so much about hiring green and you know, people are new to the industry because there's no bad habits. But if you recruit properly, you can get top people, but you've got to find the happy people. You don't want to find the guy like with the beer in the truck. Those are the ones we say you don't want the bad habits. There are people with good habits, but you got to have a great company, a great culture that they're going to be. I want to pivot into, you know, obviously another big part of the business is not just technicians, it's call center, right? Call centers.
Yes.
That's the number one thing, right? We spend all this money on marketing, and then it goes right out the door if those calls don't get closed. So what are some of when you're looking at businesses, what are some of the most common problems you're seeing in call centers, especially larger businesses?
You know, the biggest challenge I see, you know, booking percentage has actually been pretty good.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing as a challenge is the hours we're answering the phones.
Mm-hmm.
The other is getting all the information. Right? Are we getting all the information so that we could properly prioritize the calls?
Right.
There's the other challenge I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
We know we're supposed to prioritize, but is it actually happening? What are the call priorities?
Right.
Right. And I got on the hub to kind of take a look, and there's the same priorities that I put together back in, I don't know, 03, 04, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, are still there.
Yeah.
And they still really hold true today.
Right.
Right. How we're going to prioritize. Now, there's some regionality to it that needs to be moved around. But at the end of the day, getting the information so you can properly prioritize the call, so you can properly dispatch it to the right technician.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even in some of our better businesses out there, you're seeing holes in the system.
That's interesting. What information are they not capturing in the call? Like the age of the system, or what are they forgetting to ask?
Age of the system, age of the water heater. You know, and if they are getting the information, it's not going in the system. If it is going in the system, it's not being prioritized by the dispatchers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, you may look at the call and say, okay, the information's there, but why are we pushing this call off for a day when this should be getting seen first?
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a combination of communication between the call center, dispatch, and dispatch understanding. You know, when you sit and talk to them, they'll say they understand. Yeah. But it's not being put into play.
Right. Right.
And I always blame that on the service manager.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. That's you have oversight on that.
Right. Right. They're the ones you should be setting the board.
Exactly.
Yeah. Dispatch, I feel, is such a unique job. Like, what is your experience? The best dispatchers, what are their backgrounds? How do you train up a good, you know, and then that background, how do you train them to really understand? Because you got to have some technical, you got to understand the call center. I mean, it's a blended position, and it's a tough one.
It is. And they have to be smart. You know, a lot of times you go to a business and they'll promote a call taker that's been there for a while. Will make that person the dispatcher.
Right.
Dispatcher, it's a unique position because all the revenue in the business flows through their fingertips. Right. Right. I mean, so they have to think exactly like the manager thinks. Mm-hmm. And it takes a period of time to make sure that person is that way. Right. You know, I remember my dispatcher from way back in the day, but, you know, I learned this early on, and her name was Jody. And it was a process for Jody to understand it. Yeah. But once she started to understand it, she would poke her head in my office and say, "Hey, Carl, you'll see I moved this call to this technician, and here's why." Yeah. And I'm like, "That's it?"
Yeah.
I mean, she
She
got
got it. Right.
right. She understood that, Mike was better working with, senior citizens that were probably single old ladies, because he always reminded them of a grandson or whatever, and just
Yeah.
got really good results with them versus, John, who wasn't good with seniors. He didn't have the patience for them. And,
Right.
so she knew those all these little things come into play. It's not always just, well, it's this kind of problem and Carl's best solving that problem.
Right.
Personalities come into play too.
Sure. Sure.
And so it's like getting an understanding of that.
Yeah. So it's probably, I mean, it's just, do dispatchers, you like them to sit in on trainings, like tech trainings, so they understand what they're going through? Yeah. See, that's a good little nugget to bring through. Yeah. Because they got to know those guys.
They have to know the guys. They have to know the guys' results.
Yeah.
Right. And because they need to know at all times who's the hot hand. Who's the hot hand today? For
sure.
Right. Now the service manager, he should be setting the board, but sometimes he's
doing
off dealing with a problem somewhere, maybe a problem customer, he's out in the field. So that person still needs to understand what needs to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And because you find this, what I call socialism on the dispatch board, or with sales leads, where we're going to be fair.
Everybody gets one. Yeah.
Everybody gets their fair share, right? and our businesses are capitalistic, right? I mean,
absolutely.
If I got 2 calls and 2 technicians, and one's really good, and his blended average ticket's $800, and the other's blended average ticket is $400, guess who gets 2 calls and who goes home?
That's right. That's right.
They're not getting one each. One each, right. I'm going to get $1,200.
Yeah.
If the other guy runs 2, I'm getting $1,600.
That's right. That's right.
That's
it's a math
needs
problem.
To be thought of. Yes.
Totally agree. We could spend an hour just on this, but I want to keep pushing forward because there's a lot of good stuff I want to cover. We talk call center. Let's talk call volume. I mean, that's the hot topic increasingly now. Everyone got fat and happy the last 3 years with COVID. Just calls coming everywhere. But now some centers it's getting a little harder. So what is your experience and what you're seeing? Like, how, if I don't have those calls that I need in a couple days, like you start looking at the board, what should I be doing as a business to remedy that?
So a couple things. First off, what does your club membership base look like? Mm-hmm. And I'm always working the day before. So for example, at 3:00 today, and I always teach, all the service managers, general managers, when I'm going to branches now, set your phone alarm for 3:00. Because at 3:00 today, it needs to say, "Hey, knucklehead, look at your board for tomorrow."
Right.
Because there's nothing, nothing worse than playing, that Russian roulette game where you come in the morning, flip on the computer, and let's see what's happening today.
Ooh, yeah, that gives me anxiety thinking about it.
Yeah, that's reactive, right? That's reactive management.
Right.
Proactive management. Now we still have to finish out today, but if I'm looking at tomorrow and I don't have morning calls, and now we have everybody in the building starts to turn to outbounder. Right.
Yeah.
Now we're outbound those clubs and we're setting appointments, at least getting the morning set up so that when people come in, they got work right away.
Right.
Because it's nothing worse than bringing technicians and all these people in and when sorry, got nothing for you. Just hang around and see if we can find something for you. No.
Yeah.
Let's make sure everybody's set up to get 1 or 2 calls in the morning from outbounding.
Yep.
And so you got your clubs, and then you if your clubs are exhausted, now you're working on everybody that if you're an HVAC business, everybody you've done tune-ups for 6 months ago.
Yep.
But they don't have clubs. You call them and tell them it's time. You don't say, "Can we come do it?" No, it's time for your fall or your spring tune-up. It's time.
It's time.
If it's plumbing, I always tell them, go back. If you ran drain cameras on drain calls, and you gave them, a 60, 90, 120-day warranty, whatever you're giving as a warranty, if I run the camera, go back and call them and tell them, "Hey, we could extend it, another 90 days if we come run the camera again."
Yeah, that's a good nugget. I like that. Yeah.
And then when they're in the home, they got to make sure they're also doing the plumbing inspections.
Yep.
Good things will start to happen if we're professional and we go and do it.
Absolutely.
You can call your water heaters.
Mm-hmm.
And tell them it's time for their annual. A lot of times when you make these outbound calls, especially in plumbing, there's a lot of nuisance that people have in the home, but it's not bad enough for me to actually call you.
Yeah.
When you're calling around and say, "Hey, it's time for your annual water heater, inspection or flush. Oh, I've been meaning to call you anyway. I got this slow drain going on, and you'll pick up work that way.
Yep. Yep.
So it's being proactive. We can't sit around and cross our fingers and hope the phone.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And by the way, the other thing is, if our phone's not ringing and we're not flush with calls, you got to start sending people home.
Yeah.
Hourly people have to start going home. And they'll feel the pain. It's like, hey, the techs aren't working. We got to start coming back on your hours.
Yeah.
Unless you want to outbound.
Right. Give me that phone. Yeah.
You want outbound, stick around, he would start putting calls on the board. But we have expectations, when you outbound, that you book some calls.
Right. Right. Certainly, we don't want to get to that triage moment, but it does happen. But let's talk about how we can hopefully avoid that and talk a little more marketing. What are some of the common, when you look at people's marketing plans and what they're doing? I mean, it's so hard to talk unilaterally because every market's different, right? Because what happens in LA isn't going to happen in Raleigh, Missouri, right? So, but what are some things you kind of look for? I mean, I guess, do they have a marketing plan, or what are some things you're always looking for when you go visit locations?
So I always want to look at their marketing reports, and you'll find out we don't have a lot of marketing reports. They'll turn their online over to one company. Yes. And they'll get reports. And I was just having this conversation, 15 minutes ago. And again, I'm a simple guy, right? So don't talk to me about impressions and clicks and click-through rates and all this stuff. That's all stuff to make, you online marketing people feel good. Yeah. Right. And you're baffling me. Oh, your click-through rate and this. I don't care. Here's what I want to know. How many times did my phone ring from that marketing? Right. How many did I book? How many houses did I get into? And how much revenue did I generate? Yeah. Yeah. That's what I want to know. Right. Don't give me all that crap. I don't care. Right. I don't care how many impressions I had, because that didn't make my phone ring. Exactly. Right. Exactly. And you got to have those hard conversations, because a lot of contractors will go, okay, and then they leave the meeting and they go, we still don't have calls. Exactly. So I'm paying money. Is my phone ringing, and am I getting into houses and generating revenue? Yeah. Right. Yep. So are they the kind of call? Am I fishing in the right pond? Right. Because some people could get you a lot of calls, but the way it is, a lot of rentals that are not in the best parts of town. Right. I don't want to be fishing in that pool. I'm not saying you can't generate revenue there, but it's much more difficult. It's harder, for sure. Right. So are we fishing in the right pool, and am I getting into houses? So those marketing reports that tell me how many times the phone rang. So did I have a bookable call? What's my booking rate? Because I've seen where my booking rate for a call center, they're booking 85, 88%. Right. But then with these online calls that are coming in, they're only booking them at 47%. Well, they didn't get stupid, right? They don't book everything else at 88%, but these calls were stupid and we book them at 47. Yeah. Right. Right. So what's going on with those calls? So you have to have the ability to listen to those calls. And that's going to tell us what kind of people it's bringing in, or what kind of business it's bringing in. It might not be the business we want. So the phone's ringing, but we can't book them. Yes. Because it's bringing in the wrong kind of business. Maybe it's, fire sprinklers. So we're not booking them. Yep. So you've got to get granular with your online companies, and they're going to try to baffle you with their BS. Yeah. That's what they do. That's what they're really good at. Yes. Boom. How many times did my phone ring? How many did I book? How many houses did I get into? How much revenue is it generating? Yep. That's good stuff. That's good. It's true. And I feel like a lot of them grow too fast, and then they don't support. I feel it's every 2 years people switch companies. That seems to be the lifespan of one. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it was no different. I got to tell you, it was no different at ARS. Yeah. I can't tell you how many online companies we went through. Yeah. So when you find one that's getting you some decent results, stay with them. Yeah. Don't hop around, because there's always that transition that costs you. Oh, whenever you make a transition, it's going to cost you. Yes. Yeah, they just drop. The calls drop. Yep. Yep. And then the old company, they're not helping the new company. There's nothing for them to do that. So, yeah. So it's got to be clearly thought out. And when you make a move, it has to be, it's no different than a really good, sales guy moving sales jobs. I mean, you just don't do it on a whim. For sure. That revenue stream's got to continue, because at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to.
Absolutely.
Revenue.
Again, we could talk about that forever. Let's pivot. The call comes in, it gets booked. Let's talk some text. So when you see labor percentages and gross margins get skewed, what are some common problems you're always looking? What are you asking the service manager in those operations? Kind of talk us through how you troubleshoot those situations.
Yeah. So pricing, obviously. Mm-hmm. So if you see material and labor is higher, are we properly priced?
Right.
Sounds
basic, but boy, people forget about it. Yeah.
I mean, materials went up so much over the last couple of years, and not everybody stayed up with it. I mean, last year and the year before, it was almost monthly that you had an increase in your prices, because material was going up every month.
Yeah.
Especially with shortages and all that kind of stuff. So people didn't stay up to speed on that. Mm-hmm. So pricing's an issue. Or how much time are we spending on the jobs? Do we have enough hours built into the task?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you see labor high, but materials okay. Yeah. Now is there enough labor built into the task, or we need to increase our labor rate?
Right.
So there's a number of things I look at, but the other thing I look at is, this gets back to the socialism. I mean, how are we? Who's getting the calls? How much revenue are they generating? What's their average tickets? How are they converting the calls?
Right.
And that's a big one. When I go to a business, I want to look at how many service calls you ran, and how many you convert into bigger tickets, and how many you are staying at the lower. And then I want to know what's the average ticket for everything under $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
What's that average ticket?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the average ticket for everything over $1,500?
Mm-hmm.
And what percentages are converting to $1,500? And that's going to tell you how good the technicians are.
Right.
Because, and I'll ask service managers, how do you define success or failure on a service call?
Ooh, that's good.
And I'll ask technicians that. You go into a home, you fix the problem, the customer's happy, and you leave. Success or failure.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because, it's our report card.
Yeah.
The P&L is a report card. Well, at the end of every day, service technician, your report card is how you performed on the 3 to 4 calls I gave you.
Absolutely.
And what is success and what is failure? Your kid said, you asked your kid for his report card, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So if you go home and your kid says, what's your report card look like today, Dad?
Right.
What are you going to say? Success or failure?
Right.
All right. And how do you define it? So in my opinion, you have a service call, whether it's a maintenance call or somebody called for a service. You go in and you do the repair and you leave. That's failure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how happy the customer. If the customer's happy, you did a great job, you were polite. That's failure.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a multi-service line business.
Yes.
If you have electric and plumbing and HVAC.
Yes.
Right? You better come out of there with one or more of these things. Okay, yeah, do the repair. But I like to see a repair plus, meaning you did a complete evaluation of the home.
Right.
And there's more than one thing that should be fixed.
Right.
In a lot of cases. Right. So you did the major repair, but there were a couple add-on repairs because I did a good job evaluating the house.
Right.
Did I get a club membership?
Amazes me how many large companies allow club sales just to they don't emphasize it. I don't know if it's because they got so fat and happy the last couple of years, but some big, really good companies I know of, they're like, oh, we just haven't been capitalized. They don't train on it. They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued. Go ahead.
And then, well, my phone's not ringing. But the clubs are a savings account, right? Why do people have savings accounts?
Oh, that's a good, I like that.
Support for this podcast comes from Angie. Angie is one of the largest home services marketplaces that connects qualified service professionals to project-ready homeowners. With over 25 years of experience and a network of more than 250,000 pros, we have helped more than 150 million people with their home needs. For service professionals, we are the source for everything from new customers and revenue streams to reviews, payments, and perks. With homeowners today investing more than ever, countless projects need a pro to take them on. We make the connection.
This happens. It's more or less, I would say emerging companies that are, they're smaller, but they're doing the right things. And they say they have got 3 really good techs, but they've got 5 or 6 that are still kind of Boy, I just forget to give options. I forget to do the safety inspection. How do you coach a service manager to handle those guys where they just either they haven't bought on or they don't understand why they need to do that stuff?
Yeah, so a couple of things. And if you take the technicians that are given options
Mm-hmm.
and you do their average tickets, and you take the technicians that aren't doing options and you do their average tickets, you'll see that there's always a lift for the ones that have options.
Yeah.
Options will always provide you with a greater average ticket. It will.
Absolutely.
Than the ones that don't. So there's the first evidence. I mean, it's proof.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you're just dad telling me stuff. Yeah, whatever. But proof's in the pudding. And the more revenue you generate, the more money you make, right?
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
your raise right there.
Yep.
So
yeah, when they start asking for raises, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's right there.
I was going to ask you in terms of comp, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off. So finish your thought. What did you prefer your technicians to be paid by? Like a commission or piece rate, or what when you were looking and managing these different operations, what did you prefer the operators pay their guys?
So when you talk in terms of install, whatever it is, a piece rate.
Yeah.
Right, because we got a certain amount of labor that's built in there, so I'm gonna pay you a piece rate on that.
Yeah. So that's your preference.
Yes. Yeah. For installation type stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's water heaters, whatever it is, you're getting piece rate, flat rate for doing that install.
Right.
Right. When you're talking about technicians, I am okay with a blended.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, new comp, that's good.
Yep.
Right. And so I know if I'm a good communicator as a technician and I'm able to get the add-on repairs from doing evaluations and things like that.
Yep.
I know I can make more money, and I will. Then you got people that they're not good communicators. They don't want to try to be sales or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But they're great technicians. They can fix anything.
Yeah.
Right. They can go up to a condenser and rub on it. It's healed because they're just that good.
Yeah.
And there's a place for them in the business. So I don't have a problem paying them hourly.
Yeah.
Because I need people to go back on callbacks or troubled customers, troubled, repairs. I need somebody to do that. And you'll find that sometimes when you have your new comp type or commission-based technicians, they don't want to go spend a lot of time on that because they're not going to get money.
Right.
And I'm not saying there's certain things you can't change.
Yeah.
Right. So if you try to put everybody in the right position, this hourly guy, I know he's happy going and fixing stuff, and I'll pay him by the hour, and he's happy. And then this other guy, he's hungry. He wants to get out there, and get his kids through college and things like that. And as long as he's, honest and trustworthy, go out there and earn your commission. And
that's a good point. You got to be honest and trustworthy. You got to know your people. Absolutely. That's why we recruit. That's why we interview people hard. Yep. That's a good nugget. And the minute they don't do something right, they're gone. You can't have people like that. No, nope. Absolutely not. But I'm glad you brought that up. There are places in a company for people that are great technically that aren't hunters, but they fill a great need in troubleshooting, hard situations, stuff like that. Yeah. That's good.
There's some businesses I've been to, and I've always loved this. And the Powells, I don't know if they're still members from out there, electric company out.
Oh God, yeah, they have. Yeah.
But he had this seller doer concept.
Mm-hmm.
Where you had this group of electricians, they'd run around, they were great communicators, and they'd go out and sell all the work. And then they had the worker bees that come behind them. They're just happy doing the work.
Yep.
Made a good living hourly, and they'd come behind and do the work.
Yep.
And that model really works good because you keep your best communicators and salespeople in front of homeowners.
Yes.
And they're not tied down for 2 or 3 days now doing work.
Mm-hmm.
And now your B and C techs have to go out and sell work because then you get these ebbs and flows of high sales, low sales, high, because all your right. So you're always keeping your best communicators in front of homeowners, and that's the best way to do it.
It's funny you brought that. I would say I hate to put a percentage on it, but there's a lot of that model now in CertainPath in the plumbing and electrical side, and they got those guys that they flip it over to an install team. It's just like the HVAC model, so it works. Let's talk a little materials, equipment. When you see materials percentages off, when you're looking at these companies, what are some of the main culprits, reason why those are high?
Yeah, we go back to pricing. Is our
Yeah.
pricing right? Or
Right.
are we priced too low for it? So I always like to, and it's part of my checklist that I want to see when I go to a business is I want to see your job costing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's going to tell us a lot.
Sure.
So looking at your job cost, make sure we're priced right. If we're priced right and we still have high materials, are we adding things to jobs?
Right.
Right. So the technician wants to get the big ticket. I'll throw in this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I'll throw in a UV light if you get this filter.
Yeah.
Right. So how are we managing those materials, that are going onto the trucks
Mm-hmm.
and then subsequently go into a job, but it didn't show up on the invoice?
Do you break it down by guy, or is it just departmental?
If there's a problem,
Yeah.
we're going to start breaking it down by guy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
If there's not a problem, just spot check here and there.
Right.
Just spot check some jobs, just to make sure things are coming out right. But if I got a problem, if there's according to my inventory, I should expense this, but on my P&L, it's that.
Yeah.
Well, where's this variance coming from? Now we have to drill down into the variance, and that might be getting to individuals.
Is
right?
it when you
got a sales
guy
running out to the install team? Hey, I promised this. And so they grab it, but it never went through the install folder to get expensed.
Yeah.
But it came out of the warehouse. So what kind of warehouse controls do we have that
gonna ask you
everything
about
that's leaving there is getting tied to a job or a person?
Yeah.
Meaning a truck, right?
Right.
Because each one of those trucks is a warehouse. So it's leaving this warehouse, going to that warehouse. Now when we inventory that warehouse, is it on there still or did it tie to a job?
Yeah.
And that has to be managed.
Right.
And you'll be amazed at how many businesses you go to, they're not inventorying trucks.
Right. Yep.
Right. And
how often do you say they should inventory a truck?
Quarterly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it takes a few hours to do it. So, you do one a day in a month, you could do 20 trucks.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so, and you don't see a lot of fleets that big.
Right.
So
even the best, most organized trucks, right? That you
Mhm.
we really know what our inventory needs to be for our market. But there's always jobs that there's going to be something that you don't have on the truck. So how do you prefer contractors to handle those situations? Do you give the techs a credit card so they can go to Home Depot and they, what's the process you would prefer them to exercise?
Again, situation dictates. I have to go to Home Depot and get it not on my card, on their card, and I'll reimburse them.
Yeah.
Right. That's my preference.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it's on their car all the time,
they ain't doing it.
They'll be sure to have the stuff on their truck.
That's a good point. That's good.
Right? I mean, that's in my opinion, that's the best way to do it. If you give your card, because you're burning time.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we sell. We sell time.
Yep.
Right. We get materials, but it's time. And you run to a Home Depot, even if it's 10 minutes down the street, you're burning an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, having the trucks properly stocked is imperative. And if you're a good service manager or install manager, you're watching how many times they're running to supply houses or whatever. And then you got to pinpoint to, was it the person that sold the job that didn't tell us everything we were going to need for it?
Right.
Or is my install crew too lazy to visualize the job and make sure everything is there for it?
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
What are your thoughts on VMIs, the vendor managed systems? Is that really the way to go once you get to a certain size? It just kind of eliminates a lot of that time consuming.
I've seen it done a lot of times really well.
Yeah.
Where it's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
But it has to be managed.
Yeah.
If you're not managing the VMI folks,
yeah,
inventory can get worse.
That's interesting. Yeah. So it's still but a price shop.
You got a price shop. You got to make sure you're being billed for what you use. You're not being overbilled.
Ooh, yeah.
Right. I mean, there have just been a lot of times where that gets out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, they come in and do an inventory, and there's a big inventory adjustment to your business because they lost control.
Yeah.
And everything has to tie to a truck or a home,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything. And if you go in and they're doing weekly inventories and billing you weekly, you better take a look at those materials, and they better every single one of them tie to a job or a truck.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
That's a good nugget.
Because you let it go 3, 6, 9 months, all of a sudden, boom, oh, there's an inventory adjustment of $30,000-$40,000. Right now, right? You guys are billing me weekly, and everything's got to tie to a job.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent. All right. I want to wrap it up, Carl, in honor of your time. I know you got a lot of busy stuff going on today. Good stuff. What are, just again, wrapping up, just kind of what are you've been in a handful of our members. Before that, obviously a lot of ARS locations helping folks. What are the 2 to 3 biggest problems you see that the larger contractors, what are those big problems that they're making? 2 to 3 common ones that someone watching this or listening can go, oh boy, I need to look at that.
So the biggest one, and you brought it up earlier, Bob, everybody's suffering for calls right now. I mean, they're struggling for calls. Phones aren't ringing off the hook. I always, my philosophy is I'm not going to cry about the calls I don't have. I can't do anything about the calls I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
I can do some marketing things or whatever, but I don't have them now. Mm-hmm. So I'm always going to look at the results of the calls I do have. And you better be maximizing what you're doing with those calls.
Yep.
So understanding the over and under $1,500, understanding the conversions on the tickets, right? How we're running the calls, how they're being dispatched, right? Are they being properly prioritized? We getting the right people to the right call. And the example I gave you earlier, whether I'm going to get $1,600 today or $1,200 today from the same 2 calls. That's all depending on who I put on those calls.
Yep.
Right. And unfortunately, if we do not have the volume of calls we need, we have to send people home, or they could follow up on their old tickets.
Yep.
Of people that didn't buy anything. Right. So you left the recommendations. They could follow up on those. But I'm keeping my best and heaviest hitters on all calls.
Yeah.
So, my guy's going to have 4 calls today before I go to guy number 2. Or guy number 3. And that's not being managed that way because we know they all have families and we get it. We feel responsible for our coworkers, but at the same time, if I'm giving them the training and the opportunity, they need to perform.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
I wanted to interject real quick. It's probably a good time to dial up the training too. If you only train once a week, if you want to make sure you're taking care of every opportunity, it might be time to be a little more to have that top of mind awareness training. So every morning train for 20 or 30 minutes. So everyone remembers every step and why it's important and all that stuff.
That's it. When you slow down, people don't want to train. And I always, I said this when I was running New Millennium Academy.
Yeah.
Quit complaining and start training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's it. So when you do have the calls pop in, you're well trained and prepared.
It's funny. Like I think of, Leland Smith at Service Champ. Those guys come in and voluntarily train every morning at like 6 a.m. And these guys sell $5-6 million and they're doing it every morning because it's part of their culture. It's part of who they are. So, okay. I didn't mean to throw you off. So what, in terms of call volume, what other things are red flags that big contractors don't realize they may have in their business?
Staffing, because they start to get bloated in the overhead area.
Yep.
Because they're getting big and they're not really paying attention to what's going on in that overhead. And you 3-4 points sometimes. You're talking $10 million and 3 or 4 points.
It's a lot of money.
Administrative overhead that doesn't need to be there. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. Sales.
Yeah.
Sales efficiency. If you're an HVAC company, it's how you're handling, your opportunity calls and what that opportunity conversion is. Right. I mean, that's a big one. That's the most predictive model in this industry is when you're talking about HVAC is that turnover model. So how we're identifying the opportunities, how we're scheduling the opportunities, how they're converting, when they're being run. What's our speed to the lead? Right. Because sometimes people schedule a turnover call out because I already have, an Angie's List call scheduled. Angie's List, boom.
Sorry, Angie.
Turnover. Yeah. We'll see Angie tomorrow. We're seeing turnover today.
Yeah.
So some of those things that aren't happening when I go to businesses, I see that. I see that up and down the spectrum.
Yeah.
Right. It's the understanding of how important every single opportunity call and lead is, and how they're being managed. I call opportunity management, how that's being handled.
Is it just that maybe the GMs or owners they're not meeting with their senior managers and every day or every couple times a week and drilling down on the KPIs? They just kind of lose sight of that. Is that a quick way to remedy that so it gets looked at?
Yeah, well, I think that in my travels here, they have their meetings. I think it's not understanding what the KPI focus needs to be. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have meetings and we're talking about too much stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone I go to is this. Look, at the end of the day, revenue generation comes first.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, we have to ring the cash register every day. All this other stuff that we're messing with, right? It's a distraction from revenue. And I'm not saying it doesn't need to be messed with, but nothing trumps revenue except safety. Right?
Yes, for sure.
Safety comes first, then it's revenue. And everything you're doing in your business needs to be, and everybody needs to understand, their focus is around revenue generation.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And if we're focusing on that revenue generation, a lot of the other ills really start to go away, because now your people are happy, they're making money. They're making money, they're spending time with their families, they're taking them on vacation. All that good stuff happens from revenue generation.
Absolutely.
So I always say, you're sitting there, and you don't know what to do. You should be doing something to generate revenue.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And everybody in your business needs to understand that. We're about generating honest, ethical revenue, but we need to be generating revenue.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right?
Good stuff. Excellent. Well, Carl, so it sounds like your spots are selling up fast or are closing up fast. You don't have a lot of companies you can take on more, but if someone is interested, and we will certainly happily start a wait list for CertainPath, SGI members only. Sorry, outside contractors. If you want Carl's expertise, you got to join the family. I guess just you direct them to the hub, right, to go fill out that form on the hub, or they can just contact your coach and we'll get you in contact with Carl. I don't want to float Carl's email out there just yet, because I know you're sitting in companies and you're not right there to address it right away. I know Jamie's helping you on the back end. So go to the hub, ask your coach. We'll get you in contact with Carl. And
support for this podcast comes from Dynamic Air Quality Solutions. Since 1982, Dynamic has been the leader in designing, manufacturing, and distributing IAQ products to the commercial and residential markets through authorized HVAC contractors. CertainPath members receive the exclusive value of the Clean Air Defense System private label to drive your brand in the market you serve. Our commitment starts with support. We provide you with world-class, industry-leading technical and communications training, face-to-face and online. Become a Clean Air Defense System indoor air quality partner and dominate your market. Visit worldclassiaq.com for more information.
The Successful Contractor Podcast is part of the CertainPath family. CertainPath builds successful home service businesses and has for 23 years. We do it by providing contractors with a proven path to success, professional coaching, software solutions, and a member community of over 1,000 contractors just like you. Doubling your sales with a 20% net profit and an inspiring company culture is all possible. Let us show you the way. With CertainPath, success is made certain. Visit www.mycertainpath.com for more information.